Hello guys,
Made it.
welcome to our second podcast ever.
Maybe third.
Maybe
We'll
third.
see.
All right, we're still looking into that. Josh went to a farm this week, and actually we talked about John Clay in the first episode. He was a former employee. Josh went to visit him, and what did we say? We fired him because he was a drunk, and he didn't even do the podcast because he was too hungover.
Yeah, the man, I tried to wake him up. I was like, dude, we got to do the podcast. He's like, good luck. So he just kept sleeping.
That's all he said, good luck.
He just said, good luck.
So you
I
ended
went back
up
to sleep.
doing an interview with another former Brooklynite, Larry, who moved to the farm with John. And how'd
Larry,
that
on the
go?
other hand, didn't go to sleep. So he was pretty screwed up too, but it was good. It was cool. It's a cool farm. It's really cool. Like, they grow everything, which is nice. A lot of farms focus on one. I mean, it'd be pretty boring doing like a corn farm tour.
Yeah.
You know, but they have everything. They also have this section of their farm where it's like a mini version of their farm. So like people can go there without having to show them the whole farm. They can show you like pretty much a
That is
layout. It's like about the
genius.
size of the roof. And each section is set up like the farm, like here where the beets and carrots are. And
That's cool. And it's an apprenticeship, so the way it works is there's different sections, right? Like John works on like the big sustainable farming, and Larry's on like the small scale, just all do it yourself
well,
with your hands.
The thing that I got out of it was that Larry does the more hands-on, like manual, tedious stuff, and John just like is kind of in a tractor plowing stuff over.
Right up Larry's Asian roots. He's in there all day long.
Well,
just-
John was like right away he got like hooked up. Like it takes usually like months to be able to drive the tractor, and like within 2 days he was doing it. He just somehow just
He's a
muscled his
tractor
way
man.
in, and it makes sense to me because John's the kind of guy that doesn't necessarily want to be like picking out weeds in the ground. He wants to like get on a tractor and just plow stuff
yeah.
over.
Well, that sounds like a good weekend. We are actually up on the rooftop in Brooklyn, and it's a very special podcast. One, because we're on a roof, and we got a great view of the city. Two, this is our first time having a guest on our podcast. Second time. What, are you a guest on the first?
Well, it depends if we count the second podcast with Larry or not.
All right, well, if he was working on No Sleep, I'm sure we'll see about that.
That'll be released like.
But we're here with Mark Geffen, who is a friend of ours. Grew up with the man, a fellow artist. He lives just around the corner.
He used to live here.
He used to live in this building. We won't reveal the address, but somewhere in Williamsburg, in a
Somehow
prime
managed
location.
to get off the island. It's a very hard thing to do.
Hello.
Hello.
Glad to be here, guys.
Good to have you.
Nice
Yeah,
to have you as the
yeah.
first guest. I think it makes sense to have you as the first guest.
That's an honor. I love how you were talking me up as the first guest. We got Josh trying to devalue my spot as number one, but I
Listen,
think
you're the first
in
guest.
my mind, guest number one.
I just
Although
don't
Larry
want
is
to offend Larry
deserving.
because he was on all kinds of stuff and he still did the podcast. He
I
really
heard a
made
little
it
bit
up.
of that podcast. I think that's going to be in like the bonus features. I don't know if people
Yeah, it's
can
behind
make
the
it.
scenes DVD with Larry.
True.
But just to give you a little history of Williamsburg, if you guys don't really know what this place is, it's right across. We're actually looking at Manhattan. 5 minutes across on the L train, and you're over in Williamsburg here in Brooklyn, and it's a really cool spot. A lot of awesome music venues, amazing restaurants, and it's really it's in right now. Everyone is in Williamsburg. It's just a beautiful,
Yeah,
beautiful
it's so
place
in
to
I
be.
had to get out. You're like,
Exactly.
okay.
But we've all lived here. Josh moved out a few months ago, and Mark lives just around the corner.
Yesterday I bought these glasses. They're like these green, kind of like Morpheus glasses or something. And right when I buy them, I put them on and I start walking down the street, and these people look at Jackie and I. She was wearing some kind of like leopard print shirt, and they were like, "You guys look pretty cool. Like, can we interview you for this thing we're doing on Williamsburg?" I was like, "All right." So they asked us like what we liked about Williamsburg, what we didn't like, and they're trying to create some sort of website. It's called Green Carrot actually, and they want to have like video content, like lifestyle content of different cities around the country. French people.
Oh, so many French people. I think that's one thing I don't like about Williamsburg.
Oh, no. Well, see, I thought you
I
were
won't
going to
go that far.
I thought you were going to go into history of this place, which is that within some window of like 5, maybe 10 years, crazy sped up process of evolution where Hasidic Jews and Poles somehow morphed into like kind of that chart of like man from ape into actual human, like became weird hipster people. So I don't know how that happened.
Yeah,
By the way, that was not me calling Poles and Hasidic Jews apes originally. That was just talking about the slow, or rather fast evolution of this place. It's been intense.
I think it was a Mark Twain quote.
Yeah, I was
that
actually
Mark
scared
Twain.
I was scared to go into the history. I think you guys have been here longer than me. So I've only been here for 3 years, and even in that 3 years, talk about evolution, things have happened fast. But Josh has been here for 6 years, and Mark, you lived here for
About 5 now.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you guys have seen a lot, even though like who the fuck knows what was happening before that
Yeah.
in the last 10 years.
Yeah, I think a lot happened before that too, and we just weren't here for that context.
Yeah.
So we're not.
Yeah. I mean, can you consider 5 or 6 years like history? I guess
It's our
a
history,
day
but
is, our history.
it's a little I don't know, self-indulgent to believe that there wasn't a lot going on before that.
Yeah,
So there definitely was. We just didn't witness.
Well, I know when I moved in, I can even just talk about the changes to the actual shops around here. The only chain, there was like maybe 3 when I moved in. It was Subway. There was like an ice cream like Tasty Light.
Tasty Delight.
I don't know how they've survived.
Yogurt place. No one goes there.
Yeah.
I don't
There's
know.
a couple places that no one is ever in, and you wonder how.
Fronts.
But
they
there's
survive.
such a either that or they're just such a big chain that they can if it was like a mom and pop, they would close down instantly. But they can manage.
Just
I
to
guess.
have it for the nameplate,
Yeah.
brand name, so they slip
No
it
one's
into our
going
heads.
there. No one's
Sure.
going there.
No, I mean, but it's so close to Manhattan. It's one stop on the train. Like you said, it takes 5 minutes, and people started finding out about it. And before I lived here, I mean, you guys listening can't see it, but you could see the entire skyline. And now there's all these big high-rises, and they've all
Yeah.
come up in the last 6 years, which it used to be even a more beautiful view of the city. And now I think what's happened is a lot of people from Manhattan that wanted more space realized how close it was, so they come over here. So they've been building all these places for kind of young business professionals looking for like really cool spots that don't want to live in Manhattan. Brooklyn's a little more chill. There's more parks, there's more space, there's more area, but it's still very close and connected. So when I moved in, that was just starting to happen, and it was pissing a lot of people off, but I really didn't care because it's new. Like we're moving in too. But now, like the heart of Williamsburg is it feels like Manhattan sometimes. Like you walk in,
Yeah.
people are everywhere.
It's been an interesting evolution. It's cool though that so many people now are cool with Brooklyn in general, where it was such an afterthought. I feel like just a few years ago when you were talking to Manhattan folk or whatever, you say you come over to Brooklyn, and it's just like, what? Over to Brooklyn? And now it's like Brooklyn is in. Everyone knows about Brooklyn, all the different spots. It's cool. It's a great place.
Brooklyn's one thing, but another thing is this building, which is very special. Just to give a little history, the 3 of us have all lived here at some point in time. When I first moved here, I didn't even know what hipster was. I didn't know what Williamsburg was. I found like a pizza place. That was the only place I recognized that I could actually eat at. And we found this really cool loft, and slowly realized that the loft was kind of like a college dorm for, post-college graduates. A lot of parties, a lot of socializing, and I embraced that. I mean, spent a lot of time meeting everybody, cooking for people and throwing parties and stuff, and it slowly turned into this kind of weird commune type thing where our door was always open and people were just coming in, even when they weren't invited. But you moved in, I feel like before that really took root.
Yeah, I moved in my senior year of school when I was going to college here in New York, and first of all, it was an interesting time to do that, but yeah, I think maybe several months after I moved in, I think the place really became, over the next couple of years, started to become really open door policy, a lot of great parties, and honestly, beyond the fact that it's new and it's refreshing to have this open door thing, you really meet, I met a lot of my great friends now from that, which was
Would you
awesome.
say actually open door policy, or there was like 3 apartments that we were like rotating around. That would be a funny concept if everyone was just opening their door in the building.
Yeah, well, no, that's what I meant. Open door policy for a certain few who wanted to have it, and
Well, I kind of stole the idea from when I first moved in. Richie and me here and Matan and those guys, they were very open door policy. They were still in college, and it was just like a total shit show party house. Like I could walk in at any moment and somebody would be rolling a blunt. It would just be like, well, it was perfect timing. Like it was just being finished, you know. People were always drinking. They were throwing tons of parties. Always had different people over. And that I wasn't really into throwing parties at that point. So, but it was one door next door, so I could literally just go next door, hang out with whoever was there, and then like when I was ready to go back home, I could just get the fuck out and no responsibility. And I like that. I mean, I saw where they maybe went a little overboard. But I did like the idea.
There was an entire blog dedicated to like the hate on. Was it their apartment or was it this? It was their apartment, right? Maybe combined with yours, but there was a whole blog that I found like a few years later that was literally just bashing them, like these idiots like blast music and they should all die.
Well, you would roll into that apartment, and I mean, you'd hear the music from the other side, and you'd roll in there, and it looked like
crack den.
Like a crazy American Apparel ad that like went wrong, but like also really awesome.
Yeah.
So like me here's an awesome dude. Richie's a great guy. Like I really love those dudes. So I enjoyed like partying with them and hanging with them. But that place was kind of nuts in a good way.
Kind of what you imagine like a you know, a struggling artist in Brooklyn, like living that life. If you could dream that up when you were younger, you go in there. There's no furniture. There's like 3 like unfinished paintings on the wall, and they're just doing drugs.
Yeah, I think you live in a different place or something that you may not be used to when multiple apartments have like finger painting on the walls of just unfinished, halfway done, drug, alcohol, mania-induced paintings, and everyone should live in a spot like that at least once in their lives. It kind of shifts your perspective in a nice way.
That's very true. I would say that's a funny concept, but I have a finger painting all over my wall. That was drug induced.
That's kind of like a rite of passage into this place.
Finger painting is so underrated because you really, especially on drugs, because it's so free. You can kind of just blend shit together.
You feel it.
Yeah, you feel it. It's
I don't even have that much experience, but I'm just trusting you.
Well, I think it's like walking on the grass with your bare feet rather than shoes. You're actually feeling the paint with your finger. It's like a direct connection.
For everyone, for a little bit of context, for the 4 listeners out there, it's great because one day this is going to be 40,000, but right now, you know, let's be realistic with ourselves. You guys are awesome. Building an amazing thing. For a little context, Josh, I lived across the hall from him in the same apartment, and he had a lot of these paintings on the walls and things that were just incredibly creative, induced by something and spiritual in ways. And I remember my parents came when I moved in, and I'm showing my dad around the place. I'm like, and this is Josh's room? My dad's like, takes a look around the walls, and he's like, oh. Hi. Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, let's keep the tour going. And it was great. It was just one of those places. And dude, we had some really good times back in that part of the apartment that, you pinpoint some times in your life where things really changed for you, or you made some important decisions, and that was one of those times. So whenever I'm in this building again, and not just being with you guys, but it's kind of a landmark for me, and I appreciate that it's still here, and even when one of us isn't here, I think we'll still
hopefully
work our way
and
we'll break
forever.
in and have good times.
For anyone that's seen Lost, it kind of I always thought, because I got into Lost when I was here, and I remember like 4 days straight I caught up, watched like 3 or 4 seasons in like a couple days, and was in some sort of weird world, and I realized like this building is the island. Like it sucks you in, and like it like fucks with you, and it does all kinds of crazy shit, and then like maybe you get spit out, or maybe you get stuck here forever. There are people that have lived here longer than I have.
It's always interesting to see, like, once you get fucked with, and then The best part is seeing other people get fucked with, like after you've been.
Once you've kind of found your mind again for a little bit, or whatever that is relatively, but you're like, okay, I got my bearings, and then the newbies come in.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know. I mean, I still know some people in the building, but I don't know what it's like. Because there was a time when I somehow got like appointed like the mayor of the building, and everyone was just coming in.
Didn't you live on the roof for like a few days or
People
something?
thought I did.
I thought you were like
I
the
would,
magic little leprechaun that lived in the roof garden.
Yeah, I would come out of like the roof garden sometimes, and people would just be confused. Like I'd have an accordion on, just be like walking towards them, But there's definitely a lot of experiences that happened here that wouldn't have happened otherwise. But I'm definitely interested because you probably remember more about living here, when we lived here together than I do. Just because I've lived here so many different years, like I can't really pinpoint. I definitely remember a lot of conversations and talks we had, but outside of that, like I definitely am a little hazy on like what was going on around that time.
Yeah. Well, again, this is relative to me, but it was a very, a lot of change in the time that I lived here, like literally physically, almost even in the landscape. So your neighborhood's changing when your roof is gentrified. Like when I started living here, you would come up to this roof, and I mean it was amazing to have the space, but literally there could be like 1.5 inches of trash. Like you couldn't even see the floor because people would just party up here, and it would get kind of like wild and whatever, dirty, grungy, kind of grimy New York parties. And then by the time I'm kind of still here phasing out, and Mike, you start moving in.
That's a hilarious way to break it down.
Yeah,
I gentrified the roof.
Like now we're on it, and I'm looking at past Josh's shoulder, like little roof, urban gardening. There's plants. It's green. I can see the floor. So
yeah,
I guess that's a good description of kind of how things have changed and moved. But I mean, there's a lot of good times in here. I mean, living with you was an experience for sure, and also living with a lot of the other members in the band. I don't know if you guys have kind of talked about Canon Logic a little bit on
Not
this,
much,
but
no.
That was a cool experience. And
I think I just realized something.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest ways it has changed in the last even year or two is it's missing that sort of mayor, or almost if you like relate it to like a cult society, like you kind of need that one guy who's bringing it together. So it was like Josh for a while, who has a party and invites the entire building, and all of a sudden everyone's bonding one night, and that completely changes the atmosphere in a whole building overnight. And we had a few parties, like I remember the hurricane party. We had there was a big hurricane that came through, and we had a bunch of food because we were catering a party that night that got canceled. So we ended up cooking for the entire building. We invited people over. I think they all donated money to cover the food, and we had this wild party. And that was really like one of the first times we just invited the whole building over. And then all of a sudden, everyone's friends, and you see people in the hallway, and like it's a different feel. And I think without like a mayor, it's hard. The people here are still really cool, but they're not like united. You don't really see group parties.
Well, it's a responsibility though that you have to be willing to take.
Oh yeah.
And the time I was single and I was fine with it. Now things are different because I like my space. When you're coming here and you're excited and you're in New York and you're just like passionate and driven and you want to meet everybody, it's great to have people just walking in, because I literally never knew what time of the day someone was just gonna pop in and completely like change my day. Like I would get calls like 2 a.m. and someone would be buzzing in. I have no idea who it was, and they'd be like, "Hey, Josh, it's Tom. Like I just got in from London. Like I have nowhere to go." And I'm like, come on up. Like I rarely ever slept, so I'd be up.
Think about the set of Seinfeld. That is, when people come and visit this place, that's really the only way they can describe it. There's a table there's like an island in our apartment, and people, it's like Kramer's just opening the door one by one, popping in. You never know who the fuck is going to come in, what experience you're going to have, and how the environment can change like within a second. And yes, that is tiring. And we did that for years.
I was just going to say, before you even got there, like, not that it's even a tenth of as good of an entrance, but like I've just opened that door to you guys so many times. I feel like every time I turn, it's like a Kramer entrance, kind of just sliding in. You're like, all right, what are we getting into now?
What's going on?
Yeah, next scene. Like,
the question is, who's the ultimate Kramer that's been through this place? And well, there's been a few. I guess you can't.
I would say it's John, just because he like lived next door. Like when John moved in next door, it was kind of this weird, fated experience because John, was looking for something to do. He had worked for some schools and wanted to change, and I was like, things are going well with the band. Like I could use some help with the business. I trust you. You should come up and cook. And he's like, well, dude, I'm not. He's like, I'm not nearly as good at cook as you or Mike. And I was like, that doesn't matter. Like what we do, like, you don't have to have skills. Just come on up and cook, and we'll figure it out. And he was looking for places, and I was helping him around the city trying to find all these places, and everything was expensive and small and far. And then one day we were on the roof, and I overheard our owner talking to some people showing them the building, and I was like, is the building, is it open? Is there a room open? He's like, yeah, actually the room right next to yours. So I was like, listen, I have some friends that are looking to move in. I was like, if you give them the place, like I promise you they'll be good, good tenants. And he's like, all right. And
Boom.
Next thing you know, we have our 4 best friends living next door to us, and we have 2 kitchens now and 2 refrigerators to cook. And that was definitely a cool shift.
Yeah.
But to go back even further just for a second, it all started when I moved here with the band. We found this place kind of on a whim, knew nothing about it. We had to build.
This is
it was
6
pretty
years
much
ago?
6 years ago, it was an open space. We had to build the rooms. We had to put in windows. There wasn't even a kitchen. We were sleeping on the floor. We were sleeping on air mattresses for a month before we even built rooms. And I lived with the bandmates for a year. And then I remember one of the bandmates came, and he's like, guys, I'm moving out. I'm moving in with my girlfriend. And at first I was shocked. I was just like, oh, well, fuck. Like I thought we were moving here together to live together and do this thing. And then very quickly, I think you called me up, and you're like, you want to hang out, and we were sitting on the roof over there. You're like, I'm thinking about moving to Brooklyn. Like, I'm looking to make a change. Like, it's really cool out here. Do you know any places that are open? And just kind of light bulb just went off in my head.
Ding.
It's like, this is perfect.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a nice moment because I was doing I know I was going to come here and just be in this general vicinity, and I was doing the, standard Craigslist thing, which will work out for me from time to time. Sometimes not. Sorry for those people, but just meeting with a couple people, feeling it out, and people were all nice, but it's always like, I don't know what this is going to be like living with them. Give it a week and we'll see what type of people they are. Sometimes they're amazing, sometimes not. And you said that, you were like, well, actually, and that was awesome, a great moment. I'm glad it came through.
That's going back to your point that John was the ultimate Kramer. When the place, both places, his place and my place, there's 4 bedrooms. It's a lot of people in one space. And, we have people circulating through a lot. So when a new person would come in, they would never quite be as open to this, open door policy as the people that were used to it. So all of a sudden, they're sitting there enjoying a book or cooking, and John walks in, and John is a force. He's a big dude, and he just walks right in the door, and just like he owns the place. Every time they were like, what the fuck is going on? Am I about to get mugged? What's going on? But soon they realized that John basically lived there as well.
He's got tattoos.
It's kind of there should have just been a connection in the hallways. It was almost like having a house with 2 huge rooms.
Yeah, I definitely got intense too for a little while, because there were 4 of them, there were 4 of us, and we were starting to do everything together. And you're like, all right, let's bag it off.
Some dark days.
Yeah.
Some interesting people that funneled through.
Interesting is a
Great days too, as well.
an interesting word to use.
Interesting, the ultimate word to.
When you moved here,
get
were
away with
Richie and me
anything.
here? Were they all still living next door, or no?
Believe so. Yeah, at least for a little bit.
For a
I
little
know
bit.
some things shifted up. Yeah, but it's funny because there are a couple of dudes that I've known a long time. I mean, I don't hang out with them a lot, but it's really nice to just have those people in your neighborhood that you can run into them wherever, not be super tight and see them all the time, but they're a part of your life, which is cool. Yeah, I wanted to ask you guys a question. So, in living in this space, how did that inform kind of how you, not how you cook, your style of cooking, but just that whole sort of movement in your life to like a business around cooking? Because the reason I'm curious is because you're working out of this kitchen. It's a place where a lot of different people are coming in and out all the time. You're feeding them, you're hanging with them. It's also your workspace, and then you go on to start catering for people in different forms. But do you feel like that really changed how you did it, rather than coming up through like working out of a home, like parents' kitchen, working out of an actual space that you owned or something?
Well, I mean, we were called like the Willy Wonka kitchen for a while. People would come in, like chefs would come in and see our place, and they'd be part, excited and part disgusted. They didn't really know what to think. It's like on the one hand, this is this kind of like really open environment with gadgets and like cooking things everywhere, and people were just doing stuff. On the other hand, like it's not what they're used to in terms of sanitation and cleanliness and all that kind of stuff. But I think for me, it was such a creative space because I never knew what was going to happen. Like I would just have friends come in. Once I started cooking, they would walk in the door and they would know that something was going to be, like they'd smell it down the hallway, and they'd come in and be like, what are you making? And I'd have people to try it out on. So it's like, oh, I just made pesto ice cream, something I just like created out of thin air. It's like, try it, and they would try it, and they would talk about it, and they would, then go tell their friends, and then they'd be like, can I bring my friend back? And they can cook, and then maybe one of those people would be a cook, and then I'd learn something from them.
Or you just lived there as a roommate like you and just got to experience the good food all the time.
Yeah, one of the things early on when I moved in there, Josh and I had been knowing each other for a long time, had been friends before that. I think, Mike and I, because we're the same age, really grew up together, had been known each other a little bit better. So when I moved in with you, I mean, we knew each other well, but got to know each other a lot more. At the time, in the first couple weeks, you were like really starting to make food quite frequently for yourself, almost every meal. And
I guess was I a PI when you lived there?
At the very beginning, I think, and then it tailed off.
Okay.
So you were only a PI, if at all, for the first couple weeks or months that I was there.
Would you remember when you moved in? Like
when I moved in? I moved in May 2010. Oh no, I'm sorry. I moved in September 2009. August or September 2009.
Okay, yeah. So it was just a few months.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, so
that's when I started cooking, yeah.
Yeah, and so you were cooking quite a bit, and you would, at any time of day, whether it was like something for breakfast or probably more often than not 4 a.m., you're like making something, you would always ask me, like, would you want some? And I always trying to be courteous and like, yeah, sure, if you don't mind, or if you have some extra, because we're all living on budgets here, and your food's your food sometimes, but you were like, yeah, of course, always, and I would eat it, and it was always delicious. So it got to a point just a couple weeks in where I was like, listen, don't ever ask me again if I want it. Just put it in front of me, because I'm absolutely going to eat it. And, I eat I'll try pretty much anything and like 95% of things. So, like, everything you're making was great.
No, it was great because I didn't have that same connection with the other guys. Like, I would give them food sometimes, but I don't know, like our schedules didn't match up in that way, or they were like always eating with their girlfriends or whatever it was. But I do remember. I remember one key moment when it wasn't like the first couple weeks, and you were, I was giving you food, and one day you're like, I don't want to like keep eating your food. Like, I feel bad, and I was like, if there's one thing you know about me, it's like just take it. Like it'll be much easier for both of us if you just okay with just being like, oh yeah.
I think for both of us,
I want you to try it.
I think for both of us, that was such an important part in our cooking career, because we needed to learn how to cook, and the best way to do that is just cooking for people, letting people try your food. Exactly. Especially, the best guinea pig is someone who doesn't have much money, is excited for any type of food, it isn't going out to high-end New York restaurants all the time. And that was such an important role, living in a place like this, having people come over all the time and getting feedback like that. It's funny you say that. I cooked at home for this kind of feeds into my story. I cooked at home for a few months, and that was just not working out. I was cooking in my, I think we're still good. We're good. I was cooking in my parents' kitchen, and it was a little, it just wasn't working out there. So that's when you were moving out. There was like, that was the other light bulb. It was like, shit, you were losing Mark, another good man down. And I was figuring out what I was doing, and I just swiped your spot. And
Yeah, and then you move
just
into a kitchen where you're like, I can, wait, all right, I gotta cook. I can do this in my boxers, possible penis slippage. I can hit a blunt from someone and someone's playing guitar. Okay, this kitchen will work out for me. Yeah, it's got to be a pretty different scene from your,
from my mom.
Yeah.
Up my ass.
Yeah, it was very different. And going back to what you're saying about how it affected things, I loved that. And like I said, now it's a little bit different, but I loved that every day I didn't know what was going to happen. And it would really challenge me to cook differently, and I would start doing these different challenges, like, not spending more than $50 a week and then not spending any money. And that was always like kind of merged into people would come over, and I'd be like, listen, if you bring over ingredients, give me food, I will teach you how to cook it. And slowly people started asking to do cooking lessons or to throw parties, and I think that's what created our experience, in a unique way. I remember when Mike was first moving up, he was telling a friend, he's like, I'm going to move up to New York and do cooking, and they're like, oh, dude, like, you're going to do the whole, like, kitchen thing, and you're going to clean dishes for years, and he's like, I don't think so. I'm just going to go up and work
I said it to Brandon Brown. He was like, I hear it's a pretty good idea to, like, get involved in a kitchen, even if you start at, the dishwashing level. And I don't know, I just heard him. I was like, fuck that. I could just go into this Willy Wonka kitchen.
Well, that's kind of like, if you think about it, like everyone, college, go to school, it's a good thing, but you go to like a really expensive school to study like communications, pay like $200,000 over the course of your career or whatever, or you could have smart kid going right out of high school and just somehow gotten in the field, or kind of the same deal. Like that's easier for me to say in retrospect.
Or go to community college and get probably not that much different of an education.
Your kitchen was the community college.
It was. It was
cooking world.
It was a community cooking college. You're right. I never thought about it that way. It's also a call and response, because at that time I was really breaking down the barriers of what it meant to, like, really live life, and you're getting out of college, so you go from college where you're pretty much free to do whatever you want in the constraints of college. So I like that for a little while, because it's like this sort of responsibility, but it's like your own responsibility, that you can do anything and like no one's kind of on your ass about stuff. But I also didn't like the fact that I was sitting in college coming up with these ideas and I couldn't like execute them. It's like, I have this great idea for a product or a concept or a marketing, whatever, and I knew that I couldn't just go out and do it because I was still in college, so I felt very held back. So when I got out of school, that was when I was first really testing, like, what does it mean to have a career? And I would see all these people, want to be like a lawyer or a doctor or whatever it was, and they would go through the steps. It's like, okay, you want to be a doctor. If you want to be a doctor, you have to, go to school for 4 years and then go to med school for, 7 years or however long it is, do residencies, and there's a whole process, and then you'll be a doctor. And in that way, it was very structured. Like, even though you can make so many choices within that, it's still like, these are the steps you have to take to be this. And for me, like, I never had planned to be a cook. Like, I wanted to be a musician. I still am, and that's something that I love. But music was always my focus, and food kind of just fell into my lap. I loved it, and it was a great way for me to survive while not, making any money as a musician, and be able to play music at night and be able to cook during the day.
Thank God there's no law that you, like, have to go to culinary school, because, like, you can't be a lawyer without law school. Like, you can't go down that route. So hopefully that sticks around for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, but jeez. Speaking of that, when Mark went to NYU, and he's been here since the beginning of college, and one thing I thought that was awesome about NYU, or I guess any sort of city school, is that you do have the potential of working some sort of business or getting a job, and because there's so many job opportunities around here. You can do freelance stuff, you can even work for a company in the summers, whatever. How how did you feel about that being in a huge city like that? Did you feel that there was that opportunity, or were you just too busy with school?
So, good question. I mean, it's sort of twofold or dynamic in the sense that definitely the opportunity. Like, it's not easy to get something or go work for a company or go work for some cool artist or someone doing their thing, but it's certainly possible. It's there.
Yeah.
You can physically even get there, and that stuff is
Yeah.
happening here. But along with that opportunity is also just like, I mean, it's New York. There's just constant pressure. So
Yeah.
even when you're in school, it's like either right now, like, do something, be something, or when you get out, like, do something, be something. So that's the downside of it. At the same time, you know, there's good things to pressure, which is like kind of like evolve, grow up. You know, you're in school, but like make something of, you know, your life in these 4 years even. And so like I do appreciate that you got from the city.
Yeah.
Not that I advocate for like, you know, the pressure of having to do or be a certain thing, but you know, if you channel it in your right way, it's not a bad thing too. So I like that. I mean, I think I like that as opposed to, and this is not derogatory in any way, but like wasting away in a, you know, college campus, some field and who knows where, and having a fucking great time and an important time in your life. But I did like that I was kind of on the move here a little bit. At the same time, I mean, there are things in retrospect that like I don't know if I would go there again.
Yeah.
I don't really know.
Well, it's
if I'd
interesting
go
because
to NYU.
I did the big university, and I wasn't ready to grow up, and that's why I went there. Like, I'm sure something within you signing up when I heard you were going to NYU, and you know, we were young kids, seniors in high school, I was pretty shocked. I was like, wow, that's interesting. You don't want to go to one of these big state schools and waste your life for 4 years, but have the greatest time ever.
Yeah.
And it was definitely, I don't know, it was like an awakening for me. But I went on and did it because that's what I wanted to do. So I think, you know, preemptively, I'm sure there was something inside of you saying, you know, I do want to grow up a little bit quicker, and I don't want to just fucking do a big state school for 4 years.
At the time, it's funny because I don't do it now. I'm not a musician, but at the time, or I don't work in music, but during that time I was making a lot of kind of, you know,
I never
sort of
knew it
funny
was
like
related.
side music.
We'll play some on the podcast.
We may play some.
Like,
All right.
I think we'll have to.
How do we
even
do that?
even
Can
just
bring it
like
back.
even some of the recordings, like we could open the podcast up with a little eraser.
That's a
I like
great
that.
idea.
Wait, was it called eraser?
Calculator.
Calculator, yeah. That's
Another
not
another school instrument. Listeners, I wrote the eraser. This great song, The Clock, on that. Mark Geffen. No, it was called The Calculator. But anyway, during that time, like being a senior in high school or whenever, I didn't necessarily, and I actually didn't really want to be a musician. I still wanted to work on music, but I wanted to be around it. I thought maybe I would do music business. I wanted to meet people who were doing that. And I think that was, and I didn't even come here to like major in music or something, but
Yeah.
that was like a small, maybe even a little subconscious reason for like trying to get to a city.
I didn't
see
know
shows,
that. I didn't
like-
know that, but that makes complete sense. I didn't know
Yeah.
they were related, but you were doing a lot of music at that time.
Yeah. Used to sit in my basement and
Good
record
stuff.
EPs.
I mean,
Cra-
it's funny
crazy.
because I
Kidding me?
actually, you know, we can talk about the music a little bit, but when I would hear your music, because at that time, like, Tim was writing all of the Canon Logic stuff, and I was still trying to find my, like, wings and, you know, have confidence in the band. So when I was hearing your music, I was, like, impressed, and I was actually inspired to want to, like, learn how to sing. I was like, wow, Mark's actually doing it. Like, I'm in this band, but at the end of the day, I've never really like sat down and written the full song and recorded it. And I was like, this guy's doing it, and like the stuff's great. It's catchy as hell. Like, his voice sounds good, and
Thanks, man.
that was definitely a big.
How about if you make it to the end of this podcast, you get a young Ches listening session?
I like that. Yeah, I've been thinking about, you know, breaking into it a little bit again. I think what was hard for me is I was doing part of it was rapping.
Yeah.
And
That Jewish flow, man.
yeah, exactly.
Great freestyle.
Whenever, I would freestyle, and that became kind of a fun hobby. I would like do it at parties and shit. But then I got a Mac, started messing with GarageBand, and I never loved just rapping on its own. Like, I liked the production behind it. So like I got to make a beat, and a lot of my beats were like not even beats. They're kind of like dance music, keyboard stuff. And Yeah, I just started messing around, and what was always hard is
Was it GarageBand?
That's
initially?
crazy
yeah.
that you were the first generation to like grow up on GarageBand and just be
Yeah.
able to like kill it out of your basement in high school. And now think about like the capabilities of like
Oh,
kids
man.
being on fucking Pro Tools and Logic, like no problem. Just all of these digital instruments, just making amazing music.
Yeah, and I've dropped off now. I haven't kept up with it, so I never really even got into Logic or Pro Tools, and I liked almost the limitations of GarageBand that still let you do like pretty amazing high quality stuff. Like to be able to even put together like an EP that went on a CD at the time, and I put in my car and like played for people, and they were like,
Yeah.
"Where did you do that? Like it sounds pretty good."
Yeah.
Like that was enough, and that was awesome.
It's so funny because I still hear to this day, I'll hear a GarageBand beat, and I feel like you used most of like the good ones, I'm sure. And since you used them, in my mind, you like patent those beats, and those were like your beats, your songs, because you didn't just use the beats. You added a lot of good stuff to that.
There's
Yeah.
a
So
lot
I
of money
hear,
coming in.
I hear
Yeah.
those beats
The
now, where I
royalties.
like,
It's like
I hear a
billions of
sample on a song, and I'm like, fuck, GarageBand, they're still using it.
Well,
It's like a huge commercial.
I think that's where, to me, and I don't want to say music is wrong, but like
Music
a
is
lot of
wrong.
what you see about what's
The hell does
wrong
that
with
mean?
music right now, the things that are wrong with music, I think came from this idea of patenting and like owning stuff, because that's not what music is about. So it's cool, like the stuff that you were doing, it was true to you. Like whether you're using just recording into your phone or like on this program, like you're still doing it and you're the one that's connecting, and like the root of that is what matters. And there's a lot of music out there today that just doesn't have that root. And if you don't have the root, like you're not gonna truly grow and be something special.
Yeah, I think
What root? Like, are you saying just the connection? Like,
The
what
connection
music
to music,
doesn't
like you
have
it's
the
like when
root?
you go see Jarrett play, for example, like
Yeah.
when he was doing his thing.
Who's Jarrett, by the way?
Ja-
No one knows who Jarrett is.
You'll find out about Jarrett. I'm going to see him right after
All right,
this. but-
surprise! Next episode,
Yeah.
Jarrett's coming on.
Jarrett, I felt like I was living a block away from Radiohead. When I first met him, he was throwing these shows every week, and it would be him and his buddy Zach, and they would invite people over to their loft, and they would just play for like an hour or 30 minutes or whatever, and slowly over the course of a year, like they got a drummer and a bass player, and like the crowd kept changing every show, and you meet new people, and there would be, different sizes and different places. And when Jarrett, like in that time, he was so connected to the music, like I was seeing this amazing thing grow, and you guys were there. Like we got to go to these free shows all the time. Like that satisfied, outside of the band, satisfied all of my music needs. And when Jarrett was like on and growing and connected, like he was right at the source. It was only when he went back and he listened to it that he screwed with himself, because he was like going back in the past and then judging that moment.
It was a moment, and going back to it, that is the history of Williamsburg when you really break it down. We like Williamsburg, for a time that we lived here, it was the source. I'm sure there were so many artists just popping out of here because that's what happens. Like all the artists come in and it just blows up. And we were like right at the source, and it felt like we were at the source, and all of these people that we knew were like, holy shit, are we living like in this like 70s period, like all over again, in like a hippies just turned into hipster, like it's the same shit.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the change, I guess. Going back, that seems like it's the change in Williamsburg. I personally, maybe that source is still there, I don't feel it. Like,
I mean, it can be for.
it's over there now.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
over there.
It
I
can
don't
be
know.
anywhere. Like, what matters is that you have it. But
That's true. It's a personal
yeah,
connection to the source.
no, I mean it's an interesting thing to bring up. I struggle with trying to put things in context, and everything feels a certain way to yourself. But like we were just talking about, is 6 years of history? Is 5 years from now enough of a future for this place to change, and any place to change?
Yeah.
And I totally think so. So I think it's probably relative, but something is happening in culture at the time that we were and are here right now, for sure. Like I don't think there's anything you can question about that. But I always think of, I'm blank on what song it's from, but that Wilco song of like every generation thinks it's the end.
Yes.
Thinks it's the last, thinks it's the end of the world. You
or
know,
or thinks it's the source.
Exactly. So I think everyone really has that feeling, and I think there are times in your life that you can pinpoint like when you've had that. And I think it's when you're young. Like we're young and we're getting to sort of live in that right now, which is really nice.
You're right. We're not special. We're just like any other generation. There's a source, and you're drawn to it. Or you might not be drawn to it, but there's a lot of people that are, and it's sucked us here for some reason. Like there's a reason Josh moved in, and he sucked me up. I had no chance. I was like, one day I never wanted to move into New York. I couldn't imagine living here. That's why when you said you're coming here for college, I was like, fuck that place. And then all of a sudden, like, it's sucking me in, and I'm here.
Well, you have to choose New York. I was talking to Jackie about this last night. Like,
no,
I would never want to raise
New York
a kid.
chose me. That's
what I'm
saying
is like I would never want to just like raise a kid in New York. Like I feel like it's this choice that every like life gets to make, and of course that could be the child too. But it's anyway. The point that's interesting is you were talking about the source and like the generation. And when you talk about like riding the wave, it seems like we're all like connected to that. I remember thinking about this in college when I first got into the band. Greenfront, which is now Canon Logic, was like a cloud. And it was just floating, and it like grabbed Tim and it grabbed me, and then like...
You gotta explain Greenfront. That was
Greenfront was our first band. Before Canon Logic, it just started out as Tim and I in college just writing songs and not thinking about playing, just writing all the time. That's all.
Canon Logic, by the way, is the band you're in now.
Yeah.
Currently in New York.
Yeah, and I remember thinking about it as a cloud, and it sucked me up, and then like it sucked Clay in and sucked all these people in, and it's easy to like want to associate that with like Tim or Josh or John or whoever, but like everybody that's part of it is part of it, and it's gone so far beyond the music. It's just like this wave of like really being connected to the source of like the world and living life in the way that like opens up to you instead of trying to force things.
Yeah, I mean, I think you put yourself in a little bit of a challenging situation. You start to learn that. Like even when I moved in here, it was like the greatest. I immediately loved it and knew I would, but like I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to change and be open to a lot more than I was before. And you learn through things like that. Like you got to go through the flow of just letting it kind of take you at least for a bit. Because if not, you're gonna be fighting. You're gonna be swimming upstream a lot of your life. That's time and energy
Derek?
wasted.
How you doing, man?
Edit on the podcast.
Yeah.
Derek he'll be on
Derek
soon.
will pop on soon.
I'll pop on the podcast. Scott Clay's in the crib.
Scott Clay.
Oh, wow.
Scott
Clay.
John Clay's brother is up in
Pardon the
town.
interruption. We're meeting some great dudes.
Talk about the
What up,
pop-ins.
brother?
Great dudes are already talking.
How you doing, man?
Moss
How you
is
doing?
filming podcast number 2. We're debating, is it 2 or is it 3?
I think it's 2.
Gotta lay off the booze there, boy. And you'll remember.
Geffin's a goddamn alcoholic.
Wow, bad rap.
We
Mom,
all
Dad.
love each other, but we like to rip on each other.
Sorry about that.
It wasn't a lie.
Mom and Dad, the truth finally
Truth
comes
is out. If you didn't know the truth already.
In case you didn't know it. And now it's okay, because a lot of other people know. No, we're all doing a pretty good thing here, I'd say. It's great to see you.
I know. I'm talking.
We'll get you
Wow.
on it, as long as you can do an hour and a half talking shit on your brother.
Yeah.
It's amazing how strong the Clay
You
genes
think
You got
you
are.
at least 10 hours.
10 hours of... We'll do a 10-hour podcast of Scott Clay.
10-hour
ripping on his
special.
older brother,
22
John.
hours of...
Will you tell us all your stories? All your John.
I don't know.
I know a few of them.
Yeah.
There
There's a
was-
few out there that I don't
There
know
was
if I want
kissing
to
bare
roll.
ass. I know that was one. Actually, we talked about that on the first season of Brothers Green.
Yeah, that was terrible. But I think that's only happened one time. Multiple stories with multiple things he made me do.
I can only imagine. When
I
the
got some pretty
John
good
Clay.
ones. I'll let you in.
well, maybe this week we'll do something.
All right, yeah.
I love it's like these podcasts that have like recurring little themes or like cameos. Like a Clay name will be mentioned somehow in conversation in each one of
Once
these.
a
I'm sure they will be
podcast,
guests
yeah.
multiple
They
times.
actually, they
but-
all start out talking about John Clay, just
Yeah.
kind of because it makes sense.
John Clay, God damn it, get out of our life.
Saying that.
That's what Scott's been saying for years. Yeah.
But
So he's an enigma, that guy.
going back to your point of riding the wave, when I got to Williamsburg, and I think we've all experienced this, since it, I guess, is this hub, something was pulling us closer to this like force. When you get into that force, it's so intense. And I remember coming here and being completely just like, not lost, but just my soul was just like all over the place. Like it was just released in Williamsburg, and I didn't even know like how to really handle myself because it was so intense. So that was such a learning curve, and I think it's funny seeing people come into this. Maybe it's this place, maybe it's the apartment, but you see people come in and go through the same thing where there's just so much creative energy, and there's just so much energy in general that you like. You got to learn how to play with it or manage it or to enjoy it, really. And that is a cool learning curve. I mean, in life in general, but coming to a place like this that's so intense. And
To me, I relate it to, and not just Williamsburg, but when you're meeting or you're in a new environment, especially like a city, and especially one like New York, where you're meeting all these different, crazy, interesting people. You get in a lot of conversations, which I'm sure you're even in a way sort of referencing at a party here when you guys are making food and I'm meeting someone or you're meeting someone you haven't met before. And some of them are crazy instantly. You're like, who is this person talking to me? Like, oh my God. But, and it can be overwhelming
What's with this
in
guy's
ways,
hair?
but at the same time you realize, you know what, I can be I can be crazy to them or just be completely honest because they're giving that to me and so I can flip it back. And whether or not that's someone who you're really going to vibe with or not, I think you get a lot of honesty in this place, and that's important. It teaches you how to then reflect that back out or just openly be that way.
Yeah.
That's what I take. Like that's my gratitude I have from New York and really Brooklyn for sure.
Dude, that's the
it's
biggest
interesting.
thing.
You get a lot of honesty, but you also get a lot of dishonesty in like New York in general. You know, I mean anywhere, but like.
Well, it's kind of like a choose your adventure. You know, like I was amazed how many awesome people I was meeting. Once I got in like the flow of meeting good people, it was like very infectious. Like everyone you're meeting happens to be awesome, but you could very easily go the opposite way and like meet the wrong people and get that experience. And there were definitely some weird people I met, no question about it. But I was really amazed how like there's this really cool community. It's almost like this hidden community. And when you're living here, you find it and you like meet all these really great people. And every day you're doing something different. Every day you don't know what's going to happen. And I would have friends.
At least you.
Yeah, I mean,
if you go back and read Josh's blog, Why Eden, that was around the time where he was meeting a lot of people. And I was in college reading his blog, and I was what the fuck is going on with this man? He is an animal on the run. Every day writing about some new adventure, new person he met that took him to this place or got him this job. Like, Jesus. Wild
You gotta go back
times.
and read that stuff. Every once in a while, like something will pop up and I'll like look at it a little bit, but that was a really fun time.
That's cool thinking about a blog in general. It really is, in a way, you know, it's just like a journal of your life out for the whole, if you can keep up with a blog. I mean, this podcast is a journal of your life, but the public is kind of, everyone's connected now. It's so interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what that does to us, if anything. I mean, it may just be a natural next move, but of having a really well archived anything. Like we can look back on photos. I mean, I've been keeping a blog too, quite different and started it later than yours, but I'll scroll back once in a while just to kind of like learn about myself a little bit. Like, oh my God, wait, what? 2011? That's what I was doing. That's what I was thinking then. That is interesting. Yeah.
Until it shuts off one day. What if it just? I always think about that. Like, you have a whole archive of your life, but at the same time, it's the most disposable thing in the world. Like, you could just like, if all your pictures on Facebook just deleted, like, what would, you know, how would that affect people if you just lost like, you know, 6 years of your life documented?
I think it would affect a lot of people intensely. I mean, I'd like to think that myself and you guys and a lot of other people I know would take it as an opportune moment in their life and be like, okay, that happened. That's kind of crazy.
The other
but
people would just like,
yeah, I think some people would have a hard time, and you know, in ways I probably would too. It'd be like, damn, man,
I don't know what the weather's like.
that would be a real fuck you of the universe to be like, moments are fleeting, you assholes.
No, I mean, honestly, I am always preparing myself. It's kind of like the prepare for the worst and hope for the best. That's kind of almost how I've like lived my life for a while, but I'm always ready. That's why I do fast. It's like I never know what's gonna happen. I never know if like one day like I'm gonna turn the faucet on and water's not gonna come out, and it's like I'm prepared for that, you know. Like,
So, by the way, unless I'm wrong, Josh is referencing to just, I think, being open to different experiences,
Yeah.
prepared and not. I don't think he's the guy with the canned food shelter in the bottom of his basement, ready for the apocalypse.
He's not a prepper on the Discovery
No,
Channel.
I am not, but yeah, that's a good point. I mean,
It's a different type of preparation. It's like it's definitely less physical. It's more mental. Of like
and it's
you're
simple.
just released if it happens.
I mean, it's very simple. At the end of it, it's just like you're like prepared for anything, and that means that you're open to the possibility of anything. And that's all I've done here. It's like I'm just open to people. Like I'll meet someone who in the past would be like, oh, that guy's a douchebag, or you know, chick's a bitch, or whatever. Like, and I would just write them off. But I started to just like listen to people and talk to them. And what you were saying earlier about honesty, it's like if you're able to be honest with someone, no matter who they are, you realize like we're all just wearing costumes and we're like layers upon layers of our true self. And in our head, we're like our true self, but outside of that, when we talk to people, we have these like insecurities and we put up these walls. And when you allow someone to break that wall down, like no matter who they are, it does not matter. They will get to the heart of it, and you see that everyone is connected in that way. Like everyone wants, you know, to feel comfortable and to like connect to people and feel loved.
To shed
It's all
their
the same
skin.
stuff.
Be their true self.
Yeah, I mean, when I was talking, even mentioning honesty earlier, that may not be the best word choice because I think it's the sense of what I meant was extremes. So you get like the people who are being themselves as someone who's really generous and loving and open and creative, or you get people who are even also in other ways creative but maybe not deep down really great people or haven't found how to be that yet, or people who deceive you. But I think there's even honesty in that you get here. Like you're gonna get the real kind of stripped down person.
Yeah.
And I didn't mean honesty necessarily good or bad. Hopefully a lot more good than bad, but like, you know, you're getting the raw version of whatever you're encountering here, I feel like.
And
Yeah.
I think that, you know, it goes the same everywhere, but New York, there's just so many fucking people that, like, you could be meeting 3 of these people in one night, and you're getting, you know, it's just such, like, it's just so intensified in a place like this.
Yeah, I really like the idea. I was looking through something, actually some shit I'm working on for work, actually, but some research about how, you know, there's psychosis levels are always or typically higher in cities. It's just like a fact.
Yeah.
And that's I mean, there's something in that that's actually very attractive to me, of like people are pushing themselves to limits here and social limits, and I think there's obviously some bad and some things to think about with that, but there's also, I think, a lot of good that comes out of that, just sort of viral energy of people kind of losing it or changing it a little bit.
I mean,
It's
a
very
battlefield.
extreme. It's like, you know,
Yeah.
losing it or changing it are like the 2 options.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it is, New York City is like an intense warfare battlefield, like on your social and like psychological like psyche. So you come here and there's so many people reacting, just bouncing off each other like every second. You know, you're not driving places to get somewhere. It's like you take 2 steps and you're surrounded by 100 people. So because of that, like it creates these intense explosions, and that's why they say like New York will chew you up and spit you out, because it really will if you're not prepared to just like embrace what it is. You know?
Yeah, I mean, and then not only do you go out in your day and have one of those crazy days and you bounce off people and you meet strong personalities, but then you come home and you're like, oh, I have a 5x8 crevice here that I live in. Okay, I'll deal with that.
If you look at life as, say, you know, a balancing board or something, you come, like, people are so attracted to New York because it's extreme and it's amazing, and you have, you know, there's all of these friends here and the best restaurants in the world. That's always going to come, you know, it's going to be weighed down by something else. That extreme level of people is intense, you know, on your emotions and just in general. So it's always kind of like, you know, balancing out.
Yeah.
In the long run.
And I like that we're kind of dissecting New York and talking about it a lot, and talking about, I think in many ways, how it's, to me, really one of the greatest places on earth of the traveling that I've done. But, you know, you leave New York, and I know we all do that, and we'll get to the beach in Jersey around where we're from, or I went to our area in Philly, outside in PA, and visited John Clay, who we've been talking about this weekend, who's on a farm with Larry as well. And you realize, like, I'm out there and I'm a little bit of an outsider and I don't know anything. Like, people are showing me new things, or like I don't know how to do something that needs to get done. And then it's, it kind of makes what we go through every day a little less real, in a good way, of like, in the sense that it's not just hyper real for us, and New York is the reality. I love getting out of that and kind of laughing at the fact that while we talk about the amazing energy in this place, like, it's just a place, and there is life for sure happening outside, if not more so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of at the point where I feel ready. Like, for the first time since I've been here, it's been a few months now where I'm like really ready to go to the next thing. And this is how I felt in school. Like, you're in college, and you want to be there. It's amazing. And what happens is either like you keep that, and for the rest of your life, like, you wish you were back in college, or you hit this point where you're ready to get out. Like, I've experienced, I've explored this thing, like, I want to go to the next thing. Because any graduation you have, like, helps take your whole life to the next level. So I'm definitely, like, very excited now to take all that I've learned from here, like if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere kind of stuff, and then go somewhere and see.
I just thought of a way to change the world. You gotta section off every 4 years of your life as like an awesome graduation. Because we only get one. And you're just like always kind of living in that. Or no, you don't get just one. You go through school and it's
Some
like,
people
I just
do.
accomplished this, I'm moving on to that. How can we figure it out so people are always moving on, getting these awesome like graduation parties?
Well, that's what we do.
I know, yeah, that's true. Let's make it official.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool to see John. Like, he was only here for a couple years, and like, I never thought John was meant to be in New York, like, and he was very aware of that too. I mean, he was very much like an outsider in his own world. Like, he stayed in, he read a lot, but he also did embrace it, and he like loved the embracing it side. But then he would go somewhere more quiet, like a farm. He'd go to Maine and just chill out, and I always thought that was really cool. But it is a very addicting place, because like, everyone's here and there's always something happening. Like, you can make new friends extremely easily. You can hang out with your friends extremely easily. Like, there's always some event or party or fun, cool thing. There's always thousands of that happening. Whereas like, if you live in a town, everyone knows each other. It's hard to like get away from anyone else. A lot of the same stuff is happening.
The people who say you can't live without like what they're experiencing in New York right now. It's like, you move on to a town, and that it has its downfalls and has its amazing parts of it. So it's just, you just get both sides. Every experience is different, unique.
It's very true. New York.
I love how we've a lot of things have been created over the last 6 years. Things like New York, Brothers Green, some Young Ched's stuff, some stuff that other friends are doing. And I like that none of it has like succeeded in the traditional way yet, or at least not on like a big life-changing scale. But we don't stop, like that will not stop. And it's not like that's the goal, to just hit a mountaintop or something like that. But you get a really nice feeling that these things, whether they're in the form they are now or some later iteration of it, are gonna happen.
There's the Steve Jobs quote, or he talks about how you have like an idea for a product, or like where you want to be in your life, and it's not about what that is, but it's about the journey of getting there and how the product changes on the journey. And it's like all of these things, the product is just changing. The thing we want is kind of
we're all sharing a very similar like ultimate life, and we're just trying to progress and like live in a place that I think is more connected and more real and more alive. And New York, you get to experience that, but you get to experience everything else. But I do feel like it's all kind of happening together. It's the same reason we have our cooking show, trying to get that idea out to the world, using food as the vehicle, like at the very beginning, to connect people to that, but it goes so much deeper than food. And that's why this is called This Is Not About Food, because food's there, but it's not like we're just talking about
Food is
what
just
we're
another
eating
thing
and what
you
we
need
made.
to survive.
Yeah.
You can have fun with it, you know, and while you're doing it, but you know,
Yeah.
it's just a.
That's really interesting in how I relate to food through you guys, because I think a lot of people, and some people even ask, that you guys are my friends, and be like, oh, have they gotten you like super into food? And like, yeah, in many ways, and changed how I think about it. But at the same time, you've also shown me in this culture of like foodies and fancy shit you have to eat, like that I actually almost care less about food than I did before. I eat a little bit better, I cook a little bit more, but I'm not like, that's not a hobby of mine. It still
Yeah.
plays an important role in my life, but I'm kind of thankful for that, because it was the opposite of living with some other type of chef who could have been in my life.
Yeah, and you put food on a pedestal, and like that's something that really turned me off. When I first came here, I was meeting a lot of people that were doing this cool underground, like they would throw these private parties, and for those if you've never heard of this, there's thing called Supper Club, where someone's apartment, they'll open it up to random people to come, and they pay a donation per person, and you get cooked a really nice meal. And sometimes like it'd be a couples thing, and you'd meet different people, and it was cool because you were going to like a restaurant that was just there for you, and they were only cooking food for you. So we kind of started to do that. That's like we had our own version of it, but we were starting to cook for people and throw parties and help people like have these experiences that they couldn't get at restaurants. And I was going through the same thing at the time. Like I was meeting a lot of people that were doing this cool stuff, but it was still so much about the food and not about the experience that the food like provides. So it became very uncomfortable, and you would go to these parties and you would just feel really uncomfortable, and I never understood that. It's like, oh, like I'm afraid to taste it because like the chef's watching me, or I don't know, like if like can I make a comment about the food before my friend does who knows more about food than I do. People are very like caught up in that idea, but it's just food. Like you're just feeding, at the end of the day, like you're just feeding yourself. And I respect it. There are people that are extremely dedicated to it in different ways than we are.
This is the most dedicated place in probably the world to food.
But everyone,
the amount of people doing it on that level.
But everyone has their own experience to that, and that's, when I was living with you, that's when that was really starting to change for me. Like as people start to get into your food, and you don't think too much about whether you're good or not. You're just doing it, and people like it. And it creates a cool atmosphere, and you just don't stop. It's nice.
Yeah, I think you guys have, it's like the innovation you do and how you cook is not fabricated innovation, if that makes sense. Like planned, I have a full-on direction of what I need this to be, but you experiment a lot, and I think one of the things that I love is sometimes I'll taste your food, a certain dish in a given night, and be like, nah, I don't know if I would want that again, actually, but wow, I have not tasted that before. And then the 9
Josh, right?
just Josh.
Good.
And then
That's
the
what I'm
9
going for.
and then the 9 other dishes are incredible. But out of those things come some of my favorite things as well. And it's like basil or I don't know, some pesto ice cream you made one time, and it was like
that's always just the classic.
Yeah, your mouth is just like, what the fuck?
Although I'm sure that's been like, it's funny because you might have been the first person ever to do that, yet that could be like a huge trend in New York right now. Like people buying it for $15
and that's anytime we do a job now, people are like, what do you cook? What's your specialty? And people ask about that all the time, and sometimes in catering jobs they'll say like, I guess meatballs. Like people really like the meatballs, and we just keep making them. But otherwise, like every menu, I always try to do different things because I'm not interested in making things taste good. Like it is extremely easy to make stuff taste good.
Just make the meatballs.
It's not. Make the meatballs, and people will be freaking out.
Zip it.
But it sounds silly.
Make the meatballs, zip it, and you'll
Pickle.
be all right.
Game over. When you talk to people about the food, the obvious thing is you want it to taste good. And when I say like it's easy to make something taste good, a lot of times people that don't cook that much are like, oh, it's easy for you to say. But I feel like it's very true. Like it's not hard to make something just taste good, and that's fine if that's all you're going for. But I always love the experience that food gives people. And when someone tastes a dish, like I'm not interested in them saying, "Wow, that tasted good." Like I want that. Like what's going on? Like I don't really know if I like that. It's like I have to keep eating it to even process what's going on. That gets you thinking. That opens you up to something. And food that way is really exciting, but when you start to make it like it has to be this way or it has to be that way, or people have to like it and think it's seasoned properly, it's like if I make a dish and we're not on Chopped here where they're like, it's a little under seasoned. Like, if you're eating food at a restaurant and it's under seasoned, like, most people aren't going to send it back. But when you're at home, if we're cooking a dish together and, like, we sit down to eat it and something's not right, like, I'll go to the fridge, I'll take out some other stuff, I'll make it taste a little bit better. I mean, sauces were the first thing we do that, but I'll, like, zhuzh it up. And I think that's, like, why not? Why sit there and, like, judge the dish when it's like, okay, there's food, like, we can still take it a step further. It's not like, here's the book, it's done, it's out there. It creates for a really cool open blank canvas.
Because it's like those kitchens, those other kitchens are factories.
Yeah.
Once something leaves the factory, this is what it is. It's packaged, it's ready for you. Where you're in a kind of you're putting love into a little bit of soul food. You want it to you don't have to be complacent. Kind of make it taste how you want.
Yeah,
that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, even in the little bit of cooking I do, I mean, that's how you learn. Like, I would start to learn that I wasn't seasoning something enough, and either literally go try it again or the next night or right then, more of something, even just simple as salt and pepper.
Yeah, you just gotta, like, think about it. That changed my whole cooking style when I just realized, like, taste it and just, like, think to yourself, like, did you like this? Was there something that was a little too intense, or, like, and then just change it. I mean, maybe you gotta learn how to alter things, but it's like there's like 5 things you do. You add salt, you add, like, a lemon,
dial it up, dial it down.
You add barbecue sauce.
Well, that's why sauces are the ultimate, initial form of cooking to me, but not just for cooking, but, like, how to understand taste. Because you have this liquid. It's just a liquid. And you can just keep adding stuff, just mix it, taste it, like, okay, it's missing something, you add some salt, you see what that does, then, okay, it needs bite, so let's add some vinegar, see what that does, okay, now it needs spice, and you just keep adding and tasting. Whereas, like, chicken, it's hard to do that. You kind of season it and you cook it, and you can still season it, but sauce is initially a really great way to balance, because I see taste buds as, like, it's kind of a balancing act. It's like music. It's like, okay, where's the bass sitting? Is the bass high enough? Like, where are the vocals? Like, can I hear the vocals? Music and food work in the same way.
And life. Balancing act.
It's everything.
It's crazy to think that when I was in college, I was not making too many sauces, and Josh was telling me all about the sauces he was making, just blowing my mind. I couldn't comprehend, like, how you could make a barbecue sauce from home, or how you could make, a salad dressing. Like, that seems like you only could buy that in a store or something. And then he gave me a few tips, of adding things, like, try adding vinegar. Vinegar's, like, such a great liquid to add that can really just, like, intensify the flavors, whatever. And you do it and you're like, fuck, there's a few little tricks you need, and you can be making all these cool sauces and spicing up all your dishes.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. Think about how, too, because, like, I just picked up a couple brilliant tips from you guys. Even just, like, I think the sauce thing is an awesome way, like, intro to cooking, like, start doing sauces to spice stuff up, because it's not about precision, it's about taste. You're always going to get to your taste.
You could completely dry out a piece of chicken, because, listen, that's going to happen, especially if you're cooking for someone. It's really hard to, like, time things, but if your sauce is never going to dry out, it's just going to get better until it goes bad. But, like, for a while, your sauce is just going to build flavor. You put it on that piece of chicken, it's like a safety net when you're starting to cook. Eventually you can get past the sauce thing maybe, but start out with sauces.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. It can help.
Yeah, totally. I like how you guys are, I like how you're doing this in the format you do, because it's not all about teaching people how to cook, but even right now, if people, and when they listen to this, they're going to get through a lot of other stuff and just our banter and thoughts on life.
Yeah.
Last 10 years, whatever, but they're also going to pick up things about how to cook. And probably in one form or another, that's one of the reasons they start listening or tuning into the YouTube channel and stuff. And that's power, like the subtlety of that, I think is really nice, because otherwise, it's like I was talking about, I feel like when food is sort of manufactured, if you will, like in a kitchen, is, everything or a lot of it out there now online or in books, whatever, for like recipes, like that's a lot of manufacturing something.
Mm-hmm.
Even when you do it at home, like this, boom, I want the result. I need to do it in 45 minutes. Did it not work out? Fuck that. Like, I don't like this source. New recipe, new chef personality, whatever. So I think taking a different road is really nice, whether you guys are doing it consciously or not.
Yeah, I mean, it's this kind of the same, I think, for you, where you're talking about people listening to this and learning. It's like everyone comes at it at a different angle because it's food regardless of how you're handling it, whether you're eating it or pairing it or fucking with it. Like, it's still food, and it's a part of your life. And if you live in New York City, chances are food is a very prominent part of your life in some way. Most people, they think about breakfast, they think about lunch, they think about dinner, like what they want to eat. We live in a society where we're marketed these things. Like, we're just told, like, oh, you want this, or like so and so is drinking this thing, so like you're gonna want to drink it. And food is really like bombarding your brain all the time from a marketing standpoint. So it's gonna be in your life. And that's why I love cooking, because knowing that most people I meet have some kind of connection to it or some kind of addiction. Most people have some kind of like food addiction. They might not think of it that way. It's like, but maybe they think about food a little too much. Maybe they eat a little bit too much. Maybe they don't feel well from what they're eating. And it's like all those things can change as you get more connected to your food. And when you explore it in a very open way, it will completely change your life, in a really
Food
great
philosophy.
way. It's just food for thought.
That was one thing, going back to what you were saying, Mark. When we, you have to figure out, or at least we had to figure out early, we release all of these videos on YouTube, and our whole goal is just to click on one level. If you can watch a video and even if you don't completely take in the whole recipe, we understand people, they got a lot of stuff to do on the internet. If you can just take in one point, that's all we really want. If we can influence you in one way. So when you are putting out these videos, you got to realize you can't hit people with all the knowledge in 3 minutes. Just one tip out of a 5-minute video, that's cool, because you can bring that in your life and you can dedicate that to 6 different things.
Yeah, it's I wish our teachers in school were like that, just bullshit 7 hours of the day, and then one of them just teach you something. Dude, you'd probably learn more over, you'd learn 365 things a year, and actually,
it's
you get
a huge study guide with 20 questions, and it's you just choose to answer one of these. How about that? Yeah. And take your time on it and
learn
really just think about it.
But you will know it.
Growing up, I did not read a book until I was a sophomore in college. That was the first time I ever read a book start to finish. And it was the Da Vinci Code. And I used to be really bad at English. And I think when you can't really read, you're not learning a lot of the things that, I was really great at science and math for a reason, because I worked very well in numbers, but there was a lot of stuff that I was missing. And when that changed and I learned to read, I started experiencing a lot more things, and I realized that there's so much out there that you can learn, and you can teach yourself. And that's the same with the cooking show. It's you can watch the show and learn a few things, then you can relate that back to your life, where it's whoa, I just learned how to cook. Maybe I could learn how to do something else. I could learn how to play a certain sport, or write a book, or do anything.
Yeah.
And when you make that connection, it's you can really do anything. Just gotta start slow.
Yeah, and I think reading in one form or another is how people get almost anywhere to new things. Someone read a blog that's about you guys, or whether it's on the internet or off. But dude, books, man. Books saved my life.
Yeah,
I don't really know what that
Josh,
means.
I didn't read till later in life.
Yeah.
But once you do, you never get off.
No.
Fucking books.
Yeah, I don't know. They're important just for learning, relaxing. I mean, you get a lot.
Yeah.
Podcasts too are really cool as well.
Oh man, I've been falling in love with them last couple of years. Really, the last year. But especially, any type of work you do. You're in a kitchen, you're in the field, you're working at a gas station, or you're in an office. They change my day. It's nice because I can multitask a little bit and still do good work. I'm in an office, a lot of days of my life. But at the same time, I'm listening to some comedy and keeping myself really happy, or learning something. And that's awesome. It's a really cool medium that's old because it's radio, but now I think podcasts are still underrated.
Yeah.
They've blown up, but still a little bit under the radar.
Well, it's still new. It's like almost because it's free. It's like this thing. Like, is it not as good as something else like radio? But since it's free, it comes with so many other special things. Like, we can do whatever the fuck we want.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can get it. Some of the people doing these podcasts are doing them daily, which is pretty awesome. I think that's something that the pressure that the internet has put on art recently is people expect, if you're a musician, people want a new single every day. Like, they expect that, because you could technically, right, or they'll find someone else. You could technically do that. I mean, you could record and do it. It's the tools we have made it that easy. But podcasts, I think you can get there because you're just talking, man. It's just a conversation. It's so natural that people can be pretty constant creators with talking, recording it, and putting it out. By the way, I'm going to re-invite myself for another one of these preemptively. I can be like a semi-recurring guest. I'm not talking about often.
You could be that guy. Every podcast has
I'll pop
one.
in. Yeah.
I was just thinking too, it would be awesome if every episode we released either someone's music that came on the podcast or one of our tunes. If you make it to the end of the podcast, you get this special.
Or you skip to the end.
Or you fuck. Either way, whatever. It's all.
Well, you won't at least hear about. Like, you won't really know what it's gonna be unless you listen.
Cool.
Do whatever you want.
I will curate. I'll pick a Young Ches tune for you guys too.
That's great. Yeah, and we'll drop that.
Yeah.
But we can do a little jam for you guys too right now, if you wanna. There's also. Let's see. We got some instruments and found this in the trash.
Oh, I will play that.
All right,
a
and
little.
then there's this.
Hey, you guys rock guitars. got what you wanted. You put up the frontage. You sold it away. Yeah. You've been arrested by all the best you did. Got no place to stay.
Thanks for sticking with us, guys. We'll give you a little track at the end from Young Ches. Talk to you next time.
Bye.
So the best feeling in the world returns. Something that you burn, that little burn that you blur. It starts with an L, but hell's better at a tell. Till you hear it first from her, then maybe you can yell at the top of your lungs inside your room. Hope you see her soon. Now you're thinking about what she be doing at this very moment, and everything in your life be seeming like you was living in a dream. You love her body and her mind, her words and her eyes, expression she applies every time that she lies. And now it's time for me to realize that I was basically hypnotized. I got a taste of you, it woke me up. I held a spot for you, you passed it up. My boy was like, do the math, you should date her. I hesitated though because I forgot my calculator. What now, what now? What you gonna do? What now, what now? What you gonna do?
And so I enter with some preoccupations, but I'm just trying to analyze the situation. Except things are running around in my imagination, and I think she just mentioned something about a relationship. Oh shit, what am I supposed to do with this information? Should I agree, act excitedly, or be like, hold up, maybe we should think this over? Wait till our time together just gets a little older. And though I hesitated, it was just to think a second. I premeditated, got high like I was medicated.
And when you wake up, everything was it turns out the way it should. But what now, what now? What you gonna do? But what now, what now? What you gonna do? Sitting on the steps in the stairwell in a stare down, and we bid our farewells, but we didn't feel well. I'm feeling like this just ain't fair. A week ago we was together, now we ain't a pair. So now an explanation is needed. Must admit I felt a little defeated. Then I realized there was more than that. I decided to rise and get it back. But what now, what now? What you gonna do? What now, what now? Can you tell me what you plan to do?
Now I'm not trying to blow this out of proportion, just trying to warn y'all to proceed with caution. Trying to look through this, but it's all distorted. Houston, we got a problem, yeah, this mission's aborted.
Come on, yeah, come on, come on, young chairs. Come on, yeah, come on, young chairs. What now, what now? What you gonna do? What now, what now? You just gotta choose.